Time. It is the one thing we all share, the one currency of existence that cannot be earned back once it is spent. And yet, paradoxically, it is also the one thing we treat with the least care. We protect our money, we guard our possessions, we build walls around our homes and set passwords on our accounts. But when it comes to our time, we give it away thoughtlessly, as though it were infinite. We let others steal it. We let trivialities consume it. We waste it as though we will be handed a new supply tomorrow. Seneca, the great Stoic philosopher, saw this with piercing clarity nearly 2,000 years ago. He wrote to his friend Lucilius, warning him that the greatest mistake of humanity is not the lack of year, but the lack of awareness. We do not live short lives, Seneca argued. We make them short by squandering the very hours that could have given our days meaning. Pause for a moment and look around you. How many people do you know who are alive, but not truly living? They move through routines. They chase distractions. They drown in busyness. They are always too busy to sit still, too occupied to reflect, too tired to notice that the days are passing like shadows at dusk. And here lies the truth that Seneca reveals. We are not short of time, but we waste so much of it. Think about yesterday. How much of it do you actually remember? Not the scrolling, not the half-hearted conversations, not the mindless errands, but the moments that actually mattered. Chances are those were few and fleeting, yet that was an entire day of your life, a day that will never return, a day crossed off the ledger of your existence. Seneca compared life to a stage performance. The play is not long because of its duration, but because of its quality. A brilliant one-act performance can be more fulfilling than a dragging drama that lasts for hours. Likewise, a life lived with intention, even if brief, is far richer than a long existence wasted in distraction. We believe we will live forever. We act as if there will always be a tomorrow, as if time is an endless stream. We put off our joys. We delay our dreams. We wait for the lit moment. But life is not waiting for us. It is slipping by while we hesitate. The future is uncertain. The past is gone, and only the present remains within our grasp. Seneca reminds us, life is long if you know how to use it. But how do we use it? That is the question he forces us to confront. He does not allow us to comfort ourselves with illusions. He points to the reality that much of our life is not truly lived. We sleepwalk through days. We distract ourselves with noise. We trade hours for fleeting pleasures or empty obligations. And then we wake up one day, gray-haired and weary, realizing that the years have vanished, and we barely touch the meaning of life. This is not just a problem of ancient Rome. Look at us today. Our time is consumed by glowing screens, endless notifications, the pressure to keep up, the illusion of productivity. We binge, we scroll, we chase one more like, one more purchase, one more quick fix. Meanwhile, the moments that could give depth to our existence, moments of silence, of reflection, of connection, of learning, are sacrificed at the altar of distraction. Seneca would look at our age and shake his head, for he saw the same problem in his time. People surrounded by wealth, yet feeling poor. People rushing, yet going nowhere. People working endlessly, yet unsure what they were working for. He called it living as if life is infinite. And here is the tragedy. We do not even own our time. Seneca said, people are frugal in guarding their property, but as soon as it comes to squandering time, they are most zestful of the one thing in which it is right to be stingy. Think about that. Imagine a stranger walked into your house and took your gold. You would fight. You would resist. You would guard it fiercely. But when a stranger wastes your time with idle talk, with gossip, with demands that mean nothing, how often do we just hand it over without protest, as if those minutes were worthless? As if we had a warehouse of tomorrows waiting in storage. But we don't. Each day that passes is a coin spent. A coin you cannot earn back. a coin given to you once, and only once. Seneca urges us, if you want life to have meaning, stop counting your years and start counting your hours. Do not measure life in terms of how long you live, but how deeply you live. He points out that people beg for more years when death approaches, but rarely do they value the years when they are still alive. They plead for time when it is almost gone, but they squander it freely when they have plenty. Why? Because time feels invisible. You cannot see it pile up. You cannot hold it in your hand. You cannot measure it like money in the bank. And yet, it is more precious than all the loot of the world. For money can be replaced, possessions can be regained, but a single hour, once past, is lost forever. Seneca tells us, it is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it. The truth is brutal, but it is liberating. Once you grasp the value of time, you realize that life is not meaningless. It is bursting with meaning, but only if you learn to use it well. Every day becomes a chance. Every moment becomes a choice. To waste or to invest. To drift or to live deliberately. To pass the time or to grasp it with both hands and make it yours. This is the awakening Seneca calls us to. To stop living as though death is a distant possibility, and instead to see it as a constant companion, reminding us that life is not forever. That reminder does not bring fear. It brings clarity. It shows us what matters and what doesn't. The Stoics believed in memento mori, remembering death, not to depress us, but to sharpen us, to teach us that life gains meaning precisely because it is finite. If we had endless tomorrows, today would not matter, but we don't, which means today is everything. And so, as Seneca whispers across the centuries, we must awaken to the reality. When you grasp the value of time, you begin to grasp the meaning of life itself. But knowing that time is precious is only the beginning. Seneca does not stop at warnings. He presses further, asking us, how will you live now that you know? It is easy to nod along, to agree that time is valuable, to repeat quotes about making the most of today. But the truth of our lives is revealed not in what we agree with, but in what we practice. If you want to honor the gift of time, you must learn to use it with intention. Seneca offers us a challenge. Take inventory of your days. Look honestly at how you spend them. How much time is devoted to pursuits that strengthen your soul, sharpen your mind, and deepen your relationships? And how much is surrendered to vanity, to gossip, to the restless search for pleasures that never satisfy? He writes that many people live as though they are destined to live forever, wasting their days on trivialities, always planning for a tomorrow that never comes. And yet, at the same time, they complain about the shortness of life. But what they call short is not short at all. It is simply wasted. Imagine if every day you were handed a small bag of gold coins, but with one warning: what you do not use by sundown will vanish forever. Would you carelessly throw those coins away? Would you view them untouched? Or would you spend them wisely, knowing that tomorrow's bag is not guaranteed? This is life. Every sunrise is a bag of hours placed in your hands. Some people squander theirs before the day has even begun. Others use them with care, building a life of depth and purpose. So what does it mean to use time wisely? Seneca would tell us that it means to live in alignment with wisdom, to cultivate virtues, and to pursue what is truly lasting. He did not mean we would renounce all pleasure or retreat into silence. No, what he meant was this: live deliberately, and let your hours reflect your highest values. Think of the hours you spend on worry. How often do you torment yourself with problems that never happen? You replay conversations, you anticipate insults, you imagine losses that never come. These shadows steal your present. Seneca reminds us, we suffer more often in imagination than in reality. How many hours of your life have been wasted fighting battles that existed only in your mind? or consider the time we lose to the pursuit of status and approval. We want to be admired, to be recognized, to be validated by the opinions of strangers, and yet those opinions are as fleeting as the wind. The same crowd that praises you today will mock you tomorrow. Seneca asks, why place your happiness in the hands of people who do not even know how to guide their own lives? Then there is the time lost to distraction, the endless noise of our age. We believe we are busy because we are in constant motion. Yet busyness is not the same as living. Seneca distinguishes sharply between the two. To be busy is often to be enslaved, not to time itself, but to the demands and expectations of others. To live is to reclaim your time, to be the master of your hours, not their servant. Busyness, he says, is often a form of laziness, not laziness of the body, but of the soul. It is the unwillingness to face silence, to sit with yourself, to the harder questions about meaning and purpose. Many people would rather stay endlessly occupied than confront the reality of how they are living. And so they hide in their work, in their errands, in their distractions, mistaking motion for progress. Seneca calls this the greatest tragedy, that men die without ever having truly lived. So how do we reclaim our hours? How do we ensure that our lives are not just long in years, but rich in meaning? First, Seneca urges us to prioritize philosophy, not as an abstract subject, but as a daily practice of reflection and wisdom. He did not mean studying endless books for the sake of knowledge alone. He meant the art of learning how to live well. Philosophy for him was training for life. Just as an athlete trains his body, the philosopher trains his soul. Ask yourself, what am I feeding my mind each day? Am I nourishing it with wisdom, with teachings that strengthen me? Or am I filling it with noise? In our modern age, this might mean easing to spend an hour reading Seneca or Marcus Aurelius instead of scrolling aimlessly through social media. It might mean journaling your thoughts instead of drowning them in distractions. Philosophy is not distant. It is as close as the next choice you make. Second, Seneca tells us to practice presence. Do not live in the future, which does not yet exist, or in the past, which is already gone. To live is to be here, in this moment. He warns us that life slips away when we are always planning, always preparing, always waiting for tomorrow. You are not living one day in the future. You are living now or not at all. Think of how many times you have said, I'll start tomorrow. I'll enjoy life when things calm down. I'll make time once I finish this. But life is not waiting for you to finish. Life is happening now, in this moment. As you listen to these words, every delay is a theft. Every postponement is a burial of the present. Third, Seneca insists we learn to say no. Most of the theft of time comes not from great catastrophes, but from small, constant demands. A meaningless meeting, a trivial obligation, a conversation that drains your energy. We often say yes to things that cost us dearly, because we fear disappointing others. But the cost of every yes is not just the task. It is the slice of life you surrender. He reminds us that no one is as generous with his time as he is with his money. And yet time is infinitely more precious. And finally, Seneca tells us to remember death, not as a morbid obsession, but as a teacher. He encourages us to live each day as if it were a complete life. If death came tonight, would you say that you lived fully today? Or would you realize that you wasted another irreplaceable gift? Memento mori, remember that you must die, was not meant to bring despair, but to ignite urgency. It is only when you recognize that your hours are numbered that you learn to use them with care. But perhaps the most profound lesson Seneca gives us is this: meaning is not found in adding more years to life, but in adding more life to your years. A man may live 80 years and never taste it living, while another may live 30 and touch eternity in the depth of his days. So reflect honestly. What would your life look like if you began to treat your time as sacred? What habits would you let go of? What pursuits would you abandon? And more importantly, what would you begin to do that you have postponed for too long? Would you write the book you've been dreaming of? Would you spend more time with those you love? Would you learn to sit quietly, to reflect, to grow? Life gains meaning the moment you stop waiting for the future and start living the present with intention. That is the gift Seneca offers us. Not more years, but more living within the years we already have. And yet, even when we acknowledge all this, the temptation to drift through life remains strong. We know time is precious, but we treat it as if it were infinite. We let ourselves be carried away by yeets, by small anxieties, by the endless demands of the world. Seneca reminds us that this is not weakness in the sense of failure. It is weakness in the sense of forgetfulness. We forget the truth again and again, and so philosophy must serve as a daily reminder. To grasp the value of time is not something you do once. It is something you must practice. As a musician practices scales, or an athlete returns to training. This is why the Stoics urge daily reflection. At the end of each evening, ask yourself, how did I spend today? Where did I waste? And where did I live? These questions are not meant to condemn you, but to guide you. Even if you wasted half your day, you can still redeem the other half by noticing and adjusting. Seneca's wisdom is not a chain meant to imprison, but a compass meant to free. And there is freedom in knowing that you do not need tomorrow to begin living well. You can start now, with the breath you are taking in this very moment. Many people think happiness comes from external achievements, wealth, fame, power. But Seneca shows us that true happiness is a function of how you use your time. A poor man who spends his hours with purpose, who invests them in learning, in love, in virtue, he is rich beyond measure. A wealthy man who squanders his hours in distractions, who is dragged along by ambition and anxiety, he is impoverished. Time is the ultimate equalizer. None of us can add more hours to our lifespan, but all of us can choose how to fill the hours we are given. Consider the paradox of the human condition. People protect their property fiercely. If a stranger tries to take their land or their gold, they resist with all their might. But when it comes to their time, the best valuable possession of all, they hand it away freely. They allow others to steal it with gossip, with trivial obligations, with meaningless demands. And only when life nears its end do they realize they guarded the wrong treasure. Seneca is almost brutal in his clarity. You are living as if you were destined to live forever. He wrote those words 2,000 years ago, but they strike us as if they were spoken today. Because the human heart has not changed. We still waste today because we believe tomorrow is guaranteed. But tomorrow is never guaranteed. Life is not in the years ahead, but in the breath you hold now. That is why he tells us to live each day as a complete life. This does not mean recklessly chasing pleasure, nor does it mean withdrawing into despair. It means living so that if this day were your last, you would leave nothing undone in your soul. Pause here and think. If this were your final sunset, would you be at peace with how you lived this day? Or would regret whisper in your ear of all the moments you postponed? The Stoics did not fear death because they understood this. When you live fully, death cannot rob you. It can only end your body, not your life. A man who lives with presence has already tasted eternity in each day. Now, you might ask, but how do I balance the demands of the world with this philosophy? Must I abandon my work, my duties, my ambitions? Seneca's answer is subtle. You need not abandon them, but you must put them in their rightful place. Work can be noble, ambition can be useful, but only if they are aligned with virtue and do not enslave your time. If your labor deepens your wisdom, strengthens your character, or serves others, then it is a worthy use of your hours. But if it consumes you to the point where you forget to live, then it is theft. He reminds us that the art of living is not about extremes. It is about balance. Eat, but do not live for eating. Earn, but do not live for earning. Achieve, but do not love for applause. In every action, ask, does this serve my soul, or does it drain it? This clarity transforms how you see ordinary life. A walk in silence becomes valuable because it nourishes reflection. A conversation with a loved one becomes sacred because it deepens connection. Even moments of rest take on meaning when they are chosen deliberately, rather than escaped into. The power lies not in doing extraordinary things, but in living ordinary things extraordinarily well. And this is where meaning blossoms, not in some distant achievement, but in the simple repeated act of honoring each hour. Think of time as a mosaic. Each small tile seems insignificant, but together they form the image of your life. Waste one tile, and it may not matter. Waste thousands, and the picture dissolves. Seneca's wisdom teaches us to guard each piece, because the whole depends on it. He writes, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." These words are both a warning and an invitation. A warning that life can vanish into nothingness if we are careless, and an invitation to live so that every day becomes a jewel in the crown of your existence. So what, then, is the meaning of life? Seneca does not give us a single formula. He does not pretend that meaning is something handed down in stone. Instead, he suggests that meaning arises when we use time in harmony with our nature, our reason, and our virtue. In other words, the meaning of life is not found. It is made, moment by moment, by how we choose to spend our hours. When you grasp the value of time, life gains meaning because you no longer live on autopilot. You begin to see each day not as a stepping stone to the future, but as a complete life in itself. You no longer postpone joy, growth, or love. You live them now, and in doing so you weave meaning into the fabric of your existence. But there is a final paradox. When you learn to live this way, you discover that even death loses its sting. For what is there to fear in death if you have lived fully? If you have used your hours wisely, then no day was wasted, and no lifetime was too short. This is why the Stoics were serene in the face of death. They had already grasped that life is not measured by its length, but by its depth. Seneca himself, who faced exile, loss, and finally a forced death under Nero, left us with words not of despair but of clarity. Even in his final moments, he reminded his students that death is not the end of life, but the completion of it. And so, let us return to his question: how will you live now that you know the value of time? You cannot change the past. Those hours are gone. You cannot control the future. Those hours are not yet given. But you can shape this present moment, and in shaping it, you shape your life. Perhaps you will choose to simplify, to let go of things that steal your hours without return. Perhaps you will choose to invest in wisdom, to feed your mind with truth, rather than distraction. Perhaps you will choose to love more deeply, knowing that every shared moment is a treasure that cannot be repeated. Whatever you choose, choose deliberately. For this is the essence of Stoic living: not to drift, not to be pulled, but to steer the ship of your life with steady hands, no matter the storms. And if you do this, if you honor your time as the most precious gift, you will discover what Seneca promised: life will gain meaning. Not someday, not when circumstances align, but here now, in the very act of living with awareness. So take this teaching with you. Let it shape the hours ahead. And remember, as you move through this day, the clock is always ticking. But that is not a cause for fear. It is a call to live. Because when you grasp the value of time, you are no longer a prisoner of it. You become its master. And in mastering time, you unlock the secrets Seneca carried across the centuries. that a meaningful life is not found in years, but in moments lived fully,